Hello and welcome to another episode of the IDS Podcast. I'm Brian here, of course, and I'm with Jennifer Nicholson today from the Ronald McDonald House, which is part of the IDS Pay It Forward project for the upcoming year, and we'll get into that. But first, I want to thank you, Jennifer, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start at the beginning and go back to basics. We'll just jump right into it. Why don't you just give us a quick intro on yourself and your role with Ronald McDonald House?
Sure, great. Thank you. So I am Jennifer Nicholson. I am the Chief Operating Officer of the Ronald McDonald House, Long Island. I have the pleasure and the honor of serving the Ronald McDonald House of Long Island here for 18 years. And so it's truly a privilege.
And how did you get into this line of work? I mean, it's
a great question. I actually started volunteering my time here. I started volunteering back in 2008. Just wanted to volunteer some of my extra time that I had. Worked for a McDonald's owner-operator when I was like probably 16 in high school, college. And
along with everyone else.
I
was flipping burgers also in high school. It wasn't McDonald's. It was a local joint, but I was flipping burgers in high school.
Best program ever, I think, for the young and anyone involved in McDonald's, and gave me such great training, but decided that I would give back to the Ronald McDonald House. It was local, my community, came here and started off as a volunteer, and it really has turned into the most amazing opportunity that I've been given at the organization to really help families, and I think that's first and foremost.
Yeah, were you in another industry before, or this was?
Yes, I actually worked in banking, for a little bit.
Wow.
And then, I said, let's take a break, and I think kind of follow, I think a pathway that I was meant to be in.
Yeah, I mean, it's opposite ends of the spectrum, but I sort of feel, but the truth is, having a banking background probably helps with your role now at the end of the day, just having that, I guess, that finance knowledge somewhere in the back of your head, because at the end of the day, that's what these type of organizations rely on is finance. So
yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the Ronald McDonald House itself. For people who aren't aware of what you guys do, I think everyone probably somewhere has heard of the Ronald McDonald House somewhere or another, whether we were talking about before, whether it's in basketball or, somewhere, everyone has heard the name. But what's sort of the mission of the Ronald McDonald House, and not only like locally in Long Island chapter, but I guess even nationally?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We have a really simple mission, right? We want to keep families close, but we want to also make sure that we can provide for families, because when you have a sick child in the hospital, and we have amazing partnering hospitals that care for our families here, the patient that's in the hospital, the child, but who's caring for the family? And so that's where we come in, right? And our mission is really simple. We want to make sure that the family has support while their child is in the hospital. And so that's where all of our programs and our services, including our overnight accommodations, come into play.
Cool. So just to, I guess, elaborate on that a little, I know you do have a Nassau County-based house already in existence, and we're going to talk about the new one you have coming. But I wouldn't call it a hotel. That's not a good way of, that's not the best way to describe it, but that's like, when I picture what it looks like, that's kind of like the first thing that comes to mind. I don't know why. I apologize for that, but I know it's not. But it's basically a house with rooms, essentially, correct?
Yeah, but it's so much more than that, right? We believe that a home is not just like the four walls and the roof over your head, but it's a haven for families with a sick child in the hospital, where we're providing all the comforts of homes, plus the compassionate care of the staff, the volunteers, other families, all while being steps away from the hospital.
So can you tell me a little bit about the origin of the Ronald McDonald House? How did it start? Where was the first house built? How did this all come from?
Yeah, it actually came from a Philadelphia Eagles football player, Fred Hill. And he had a daughter, I think her name was Kim, who had leukemia. They were in and using CHOP down in Philadelphia. and he firsthand witnessed, families that were in the hospital and they were sleeping on chairs and benches, and they spent long days there, and they didn't have or couldn't afford a hotel room, right, for the duration of their child's treatment, and they wanted to help. And so basically, the story goes is, he went around and had a football helmet and collected funds at like an Eagles game. And they got the general manager at the time, that was, I think, Jimmy Murphy. And they partnered up with a doctor at the CHOP Hospital, Dr. Audrey Evans, and they came up with this vision of creating a home away from home where families can go to rest while still being at their child's bedside. And that's really how it all got started. And right across the street where they built this house, there was a McDonald's, and McDonald's got involved in the fundraising at the time, and ultimately he was a football player, so he was like, I can't run a house. So they gave the naming rights to McDonald's and said, hey, sustain this, run it. And that's how the first Ronald McDonald House started down in Philly, and that was 51 years ago.
Wow, that's incredible story. So let's talk a little bit about the programming that you guys do there. I know obviously we spoke about place to stay or place to live, lodging for lack of a better term. But what kind of programs do you run? What kind of families do you support? I mean, we talk about obviously families with children in the hospital, but is it pretty much anybody that's welcome? And what kind of programming do you run besides obviously just offering accommodations?
Yeah, besides the overnight accommodations, we provide home-cooked meals for families every single night. We have a group of over 12,000 volunteers that come in every year, and they cook meals for our families, so they don't have to worry about that. We have laundry service, transportation for families to get back and forth to the hospital, to medical appointments, even if they want to go to a grocery store. We offer like pet therapy, we have fitness centers, a summer day camp program, a food pantry, which we started during COVID. But, we provide family center care spaces, not just the overnight accommodations, to provide for the family entirely through, hospitality, as much as we possibly can.
Okay, great. So let's shift a little bit over to the new house, which is coming up in Stony Brook. This is your second Long Island house, first in Suffolk County. Tell us a little bit about this project coming up, about the Stony Brook house itself.
Yeah, that's great. So we have actually been out in Suffolk County, particularly in the Stony Brook area, partnering with Stony Brook Children's Hospital for the last 13 years. We opened our first Ronald McDonald House inside the hospital in 2013. And we really
so you guys have been out there already. It's just not a dedicated house, is that?
It's just a family room. So think about it as 800 square feet inside the hospital, where we offer a very small subset of our programs out there. So the family can leave the child's bedside for a few moments and maybe get a cup of coffee, or maybe take a shower, or get a snack. But it's a very small space inside the hospital. In 2013, when we opened up our first one, we since from there have expanded, and now we have 2 family rooms out there, one in the NICU and one in the Children's Hospital. But we've really seen firsthand the strong need for overnight accommodations, and for families to have the programs and services that we can offer out in Suffolk County, particularly in that area, right? We're serving over 3,500 families with over 40,000 visits in our family rooms, and we see the need for that overnight accommodations, right? Families are struggling. You can't afford a hotel room out there for long periods of time. So this is our program. Our Ronald McDonald House in Stony Brook is really going to be helping to provide this need or cover this for families.
No, for sure, that's the thing, because people who, I feel like unless you're out here on Long Island and you really know, you talk about Suffolk County being a county, but it's so big, and to go from one end on the South Shore to, let's say, Stony Brook, you're talking about, it could be an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on how you're driving, and it's not realistic for families to go home every night. It's not a small county. The 2 counties on Long Island, they're pretty big. So it's amazing that Now, especially, I think Stony Brook is the only children's hospital in Suffolk, right?
In Suffolk County, yes.
So it's amazing now that families throughout Suffolk County now will have another option, obviously, with what to do and what to stay, which is beyond just the family room you have. So, like, I guess let's talk about that a little and how this will impact those families on Long Island or Suffolk County more specifically who didn't have any options before.
Yeah, it's definitely going to relieve that stress, right? The stress. It's going to help them get a really restful night of sleep, right? It's also going to help to keep the family unit together, right? That's one thing that we said, is that in order for to help and to focus on the medical burden of having a sick child in the hospital, it's really the family unit has to stay together, and caring and being able to care for the families with having a full Ronald McDonald House there to provide overnight accommodations and all the other programs that we can offer will enable families to get a restful night of sleep and reduce some of that stress that they're feeling when they go back and forth. So they really can focus on their child and their well-being and getting them better.
So how did that partnership with Stony Brook originally evolve? Like, where did it come from?
Yeah, it started off with, our Ronald McDonald family rooms, right, back in 2013, and at the time they were like, maybe we could get a house out there. So it was always like a rumbling out there with getting a house there and filling this need for the families. But really, as they've expanded their children's hospital, opened their new children's hospital, state of the art, amazing, that we really have seen the need grow from there. And that was back in 2018, 2019, where we saw all the specialties they're bringing in, the need for them, these overnight accommodations, the need for families to be able to have additional services and provide this for the families out there. So, but that partnership has really evolved over the last 13 years, and they have been great partners in the project to build the new Stony Brook Ronald McDonald House.
Yeah, are there families that you feel like you can serve being out on Long Island just because you don't have the capacity or the facility to do that? And I don't want to say turn people away, because I'm assuming you don't turn people away and somehow or another you figure it out.
Yes.
But that being said, I mean, without a standalone facility, it must be complicated in some points, and you have to make concessions.
Yes, absolutely. I think, yes, there is, right now we are unable to provide those overnight accommodations, right? And we're doing what we can as far as our programs and services out of our 2 family rooms that we have that are about, 1,800 square feet in total. So we're able to bring in a lot of, the snacks and the drink programs, the meal programs that we can bring to bedside. We've also added hospitality carts, right, that can go around to the hospital floors on the pediatric side to bring our program also to bedside. So there are some things that we have been enhancing our services out there, but the need really, and for this house, was to provide those overnight accommodations for families, right, to get a restful night of sleep, to keep the family unit together, right, in that healing process for the patient, for the child that's in the hospital.
Are those accommodations usually just mom and dad, or it's anybody that's needed, whether it's siblings, anyone?
Yeah, it's everyone. We mentioned, we talk a lot about keeping the family unit together. It's part of the healing process. So it's keeping everyone. So it's siblings. It also could be support individuals as part of the family unit, right? So grandparents, an aunt, uncle, a sister that's coming over to help, to take care of the other family members, right? Whether there are children involved. So, it is open to not just mom and dad or, the parents, but grandparents, aunts, uncles. It's really the support that the family would need while they have a sick child in the hospital.
Okay, let's shift gears a little, because this is a design podcast.
Yep.
And let's talk a little bit about project design and what you guys have going on. So you started this, if I'm not mistaken, excuse me, with New Hyde Park about a decade ago, if not more.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah.
2013, so
more than that, a little over a decade. So what is that program? How does it work? What was your experience doing it with New Hyde Park? Because it's really phenomenal when you break it down.
Yeah, first I have to mention, it was definitely the highlight of my career, working with the interior design community, that outpouring of support and generosity that we saw. But really, I can't take credit for it and how it got started. It actually got started with the original designer of our great room, Anthony Barada, and him making a phone call to Kravet at the time and asking them for a donation of fabric, because our great room or living room at the time went through a little bit of damage, right, with kids and everyone playing on it. I think there was crayons and markers and it was cut up a little bit, and so we really needed to get it reupholstered. And he really came on board and asked Kravet to donate the fabric at the time, and they said, you know what, we're gonna pop over there and we want to see what the Ronald McDonald House is all about. And when they came over, they took a tour. And I think afterwards, the story goes that they went back to, I think, the company, talked about it a little bit, and then invited us to New York City at a time and said, listen, we have a concept that we want to run by you. And at the time, they said, they told us about show houses and how show houses go up all the time, and after the open house and people get to come through and see it and how beautiful, all the amazing designs and all that effort that goes in, they wanted to create kind of a permanent show house at the Ronald McDonald House, so families that we serve could enjoy it year over year. And so we thought at the time when they were talking about this permanent show house that we were going to get fabric for our sofas and get them fixed, right? And I think at the time when we talked and we gave them a tour, we were saying like, oh, families sometimes complain about, the lights at night coming through the windows and they can't maybe get a good night's sleep. And so we thought we were going to get a fabulous window treatment and maybe a fresh coat of paint. Boy, were we surprised. I think we ended up getting a fully done show house over 2 years, working with over 72 designers, redesigning over 50 spaces. But it was truly amazing. But that's really how it all got started.
Yeah, it's sort of like I sort of never, until you just said it, I never kind of put it in that perspective, and it is exactly like an interior design show house that you would see anywhere, and it's a brilliant concept. So I'll give kudos to Kravet for coming up with that, because it really changes everything. I mean, I know your background is not in the design industry, so on a personal level. What was it like? What surprised you about the initiative, working with designers, about the whole program in itself?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Background is not interior design. I think I learned very quickly what a soffit was, right? And paint finishes, whether it is flat or semi-gloss or glossy. It was really interesting. But I must credit again to Kravet. I worked with a dedicated individual there, Karen Lerman, who I will never forget, who really taught us everything, right? Everything about the interior design industry, working with designers, working with sponsors in the interior design industry and community. But Kravet is really the team that they put together to help us through this. And we lived and learned through a lot in 2013 before we started our 2014 phase and started working on our tower and adding the additional spaces to redo the entire house. But it was amazing. It was amazing. A lot of, I want to say sometimes tears at points where we were like, are we going to be able to do this? At the same time, so rewarding, because you really saw the collaboration between the design industry and every designer that participated, helping each other out, with whatever the needs were at the time.
So let's take a step back. How does the program actually work, just to clarify for some people who are not familiar? I mean, I'm going to sum it up the best that I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially each designer gets chosen or assigned a different space in the facility. I don't know the best way to describe it. I don't know exactly how that part works. And then they submit their design, their plans, all that stuff for approval, and then it just goes from there, right?
Yeah.
It's built.
That's really it. It's really, at the first year in 2013, we just called up designers and asked them if they wanted to participate, and it was wonderful, and we were able to scrounged together, I think, like 25 designers at the time to work on the original house from 1986. And then we assigned out the spaces, and we basically had them do like a design board, a mood board, a design concept for us, and we were like, great, sounds good. And then they worked with their own sponsors and vendors or individuals that came on for the project that wanted to sponsor the entire project in some way, and that's how it came about. We did an installation over, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. And then a designer show house before we started phase 2. And phase 2 was interesting because that phase we actually ended up putting out an application because we had over 200 plus designers apply.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, it just goes to show you, has this program sort of turned national, or is it kind of still like a Long Island thing that you guys do here? I mean, were you the first ones to do this?
Yeah, so we were the first Ronald McDonald House to do this. It isn't a national program yet, but a lot of our other Ronald McDonald Houses have duplicated this process in their region. For example, Fort Myers, the following year, I want to say in 2016 maybe, they completed project design down there. They're a smaller house, maybe 8 bedrooms and several family center care spaces there. Our Westchester house did it as well, I think 5 or 6 years after that, and it was duplicated in California.
Nice. So everyone's following suit.
Yeah, so other houses, are definitely following suit.
What was the reaction? How did the families respond to the new Hyde Park when they first started coming in, and once you opened?
Yeah, I mean, they were blown away. I mean, not only surprised, right, with when you walk in and you don't have that clinical environment. I think there's a misconception, when you're staying on site so close to the hospital, and they're referring families to us that it's a clinical environment. And I think families, when they walked in and they saw all the beautiful details that went in, the love that went into everything in the house, they were blown away. It really relieves the stress, I think the burden. It makes them, and we talked to a lot of families when they came back and they saw the house renovated or refreshed. They thought they were in Disney World or they are on vacation, and it really made them feel. And so many of the designers, when they took a family guest suite, they really carefully thought out those concepts. We had a designer that decided to have his room reflect like a sailboat, right? So there's portholes for the headboards there, and he really wanted families, when they were staying and sleeping and spending time in their family guest suite, that they would feel like they're sailing away on the water, and it was calm and peaceful. So but all of these concepts that came to life through the designer's vision were so thoughtful and very detailed out that families really get that sense of reprieve and rest that they need when they come back to the house.
Yeah, I think good design is really undervalued, and especially, in general, that's all across the board, but especially, in a facility like yours, or the types of things that the people who are visiting your facility are dealing with. And they probably walk in and they probably don't even consciously notice the design. Yeah. They're not noticing, like you said, a porthole or whatever. Yes. But there's just a comfort that good design makes them feel, where it's like it's warmer, and they just feel better about themselves when they walk in, like you said, to a place where they feel good. It's nicely designed, it's clean, it's not clinical, which I think is the most important. So I'll reiterate that. You don't have that clinical feeling or that sterile, almost holiday feeling.
Yes.
Hospital feeling.
Feeling. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, I think and we saw how design changed lives, right? And I mean that in the most genuine way, where, the physical and emotional well-being for a family, even the smallest thing of like natural light in rooms or the use of colors in the rooms, how that can make you feel. We really saw that, throughout the whole entire process of how designers incorporated different elements into their space.
Cool. So let's talk for a minute about IDS, because that's why we're here, and the IDS role in the project. I know this is, it's a fairly new partnership. Obviously, we spoke about that. But, in the, I guess, a few short weeks or months since this partnership came about, I mean, what was your experience working with IDS? I think if I'm not mistaken, IDS is doing 2 corridors. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. We're doing all of our second floor and third floor hallways, and I always, when I was talking to representatives from IDS, we really said, it is the pathway, to the respite space, to all the family guest suites. After, a family is coming back from a hard day at the hospital, dealing with a sick kid all day, talking to medical doctors, maybe understanding some or maybe understanding not as much, right? And being able to come to the house and get that relief. So, it's so important, the spaces that every designer, including IDS, the spaces that they have within the house, and, how families are utilizing those spaces and what it means for them to put all those finishing touches on them.
Yeah, and I sort of agree with you. Like, a corridor is, you might think on the outside looking in, it's just a hallway.
It's so much more than that.
That's what I'm saying. It's just a hallway. The amenity spaces seem a lot more fun, or the actual rooms seem a lot more fun. But like you said, it's sort of like the bridge, if you will, to everything. It's the first thing people will see. It's, you're no matter where you're going in the house, you're going down that hallway one way or another, dozens and dozens of times a day. So it is pretty neat. But I'm glad to hear that everything, I guess, was been pretty positive with IDS and the involvement, and
Absolutely.
And it's pretty exciting because typically when IDS gets involved with the paid forward projects, where it's not just one designer, there's a bunch of designers that are coming on board to represent IDS and putting the projects together. So
yes, and I think we have 7 designers participating from IDS, the Long Island chapter, to really come together and complete those corridors and all the different floors for us. And so we are extremely grateful for that, and I think there's more to come. There's going to be lots of opportunities throughout the project, I think, to have discussions, I think to help other designers to come together to collaborate, and so we're really looking forward to that.
No, that's great. And, as I mentioned to you earlier, we had a previous paid forward project, the John Thiessen Foundation, which does similar stuff to you in a way. They don't provide for the families as much as the kids, but they still provide for sick children. And the house that we put together for the John Thiessen Foundation, I photographed it a couple years back, was fantastic. So I think you should be excited about what IDS is going to be putting together for you.
We already are. We got some sneak peeks and lots of questions, so we're thrilled. We're thrilled to be partnering with IDS, the Long Island chapter.
All right, cool. So designing for the type of kids and families that are in a space like this has a set of, I guess, rule books that designers don't typically have to deal with when they're doing a typical residential or commercial space, whether it's like lead silver or bleachable stuff or safe for every age and stuff like that. So how do you balance, from your perspective, obviously, I get it's up to the designer to make those final decisions, I guess, but how do you help explain the balance between really looking nice but making sure it's as safe as possible?
Yeah, it is, it is a balance. We love the residential feel, and we want families to feel like it is their home when they're here with us. So it is really a balance, and I think the best thing that we have done, and when in working with the designers, is the fact that we really try to explain how families utilize each of the spaces that are in the house, and also put together best practice and guidelines, right? So we let them know, like, for the spaces, this is what we do in that space. This is, we do have to sometimes use high heat in the space. We do have to bleach sometimes the walls. We want to make sure that there are no strings, so the kids are getting kind of tangled in them for any window treatments or blinds. So we really try to put together best practices and guidelines, and also tour them through the spaces so they can see how families are utilizing the spaces when they're staying with us.
So has construction officially started?
Construction has officially started. It started in early February or mid-February. And
Okay.
yeah, I was just on the site yesterday with the teams. And so we are super excited that we actually have 2 of the wings, internal wall framing completed, starting to bring over utilities and getting ready for structural steel in the next, hopefully 2 months. So, yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the house itself and the construction. Can you talk a little bit about the amenities, what it's going to offer people? Because I saw the list of some pretty cool stuff, but I figure it's better coming from you, obviously. So what are the different amenities, and will all the different amenities you're going to outline, are they all part of the project and will all be designed by different designers?
Yes, yeah, we have 70 participating designers right now designing almost 59 spaces in the new Stony Brook House. We are going to be we have 30 family guest suites with several family center care spaces throughout the house. It's 60,000 square feet in total that we're building, so quite a large house to support the needs out in Suffolk County. But
Do you have different designers designing every space? Every room?
Every room.
Wow.
Room.
Okay.
And what's so great is some designers are collaborating, right? So IDS, the Long Island chapter, is collaborating. We have some designers collaborating on a family guest suite. So it's really nice to see some of those collaborations come to fruition as well. But, we have kitchens. So we have 3 kitchen stations within the house, a family dining room, a meditation, a media room, indoor playrooms, also outdoor playground. What's really exciting this year for us is an indoor media room, a wellness center that we've added, and we'll also have a fitness center as well. Besides all the lounge areas for the families to kind of hang out with, they don't have to be in their family guest suite during their time that they're with us. We want them out commingling, talking with other families that are going through a similar situation as them, because they're leaning on everyone for support. Not just our staff, our volunteers, and the donors that contribute so generously to us, but also the families that are staying there.
Which amenity are you most excited about? Put you on the spot a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I'm excited for all of the spaces to come to fruition.
That's the politically correct answer, but you can tell me. It's all right.
But if I have to say a particular space, and I think it's only because we do not have one located here in New Hyde Park, I'm really interested to see how the wellness center is going to come to fruition and what we can do there to help to support families further. That is something new that we've added to the Stony Brook House from family surveys and things that we've done out east with the families that are going to be utilizing the house. And so I'm really interested to see that space. Yeah.
No, and it's perfect, especially now in today's times where wellness across the board is very
so important.
It's so important, and people take it seriously now.
Yeah.
Where they didn't. I'm not saying they didn't before, but there's a very big, I guess, the knowledge and the science is there more now than anywhere else, and people are into it.
Yes.
Everyone's in, so it's important.
Yes, behavioral health I think is so important for everyone, and if we can have a space that can help to focus on that, make you feel good, both inside and out, I think that's going to be the space that I'm most hopeful for.
Okay, so speaking of feel good,
yes,
and I'll sort of end this. I'll end with this question before we sort of segue to like talking about opening and stuff like that. What's the feeling that you're hoping families feel when they walk into the house? What's your vision? What's your goal? And not you specifically, but you and the Ronald McDonald House in general. What's that? What do you want people that are walking into that house to feel? What's that emotion?
Yeah, so I think the vision, obviously, for just overall for the organization is, we're helping to create a place where all families feel like they're fully supported and they can actively be involved in their child's care, right? But, project design brings this new element to the houses now, particularly our Ronald McDonald houses, that when you walk in now, families will find the strength, the hope, and the courage as they stay with us, as they walk through the house, as they, lay their head down on the bed, as they take advantage of these spaces that we've created for them, that it's a welcoming environment that will give them that hope and that courage and that strength to care for their child while they're in the hospital.
Cool. So I think anticipated opening is fall of 27. Is that correct?
Fall of 2027. Yes.
Okay. So there's still a bit away. But everything that you're doing from you guys internally to the designers externally, and like you said, whatever it is, 70 plus designers, everything culminates in a designer showcase gala. So let's kind of talk about what that is and what people can expect.
Yeah.
And is this something that's open to everyone? How does that all work? So
yeah. So there's so at the end we want to definitely showcase all the amazing designs, and I think the community and everyone that has helped to get us to, having this Stony Brook Ronald McDonald House on site to help to support families on Long Island and particularly in Suffolk County. But it's going to be the sneak peek, so of all the spaces fully done, what the families will be enjoying when they stay with us. So I think what you can expect is, every space you're going to be able to walk through and tour. And see all the finishings and furnishings that these designers have put together, all the love, their talent, their time that they invested in doing this, all of our major sponsors and vendors, and then also all the donations that we received to actually construct the building, right? A lot of our major donors will be there in support of this project to see it all come to fruition before we start checking families in and they get to be able to have those overnight accommodations and really what they need.
Okay, so in closing, what are different ways people out here on Long Island, whether just, any individual or even designers want to get involved somehow or they want to learn more, what's the best way to go about that?
Yeah. So there is something for everyone. We tell everyone. We want everyone to be involved. This is very much a community project on Long Island. Everyone can get involved in some way. Designers in particular, we have on our website, if you go to it, www.ronaldmcdonaldhouseli.org. We have a Stony Brook Project Design tab, so you can see ways to get involved, how you can participate. Even though we have made our selection of 70 designers designing and they have received their design spaces, we still have a lot of other opportunities for designers to get involved in some way, whether it's going to be helping us to get the house up and running, whether it's other things that we're going to need throughout the project from now until next fall. And then I think just as a community in general, there's wish list items that we still need to open up the house, right? Think about 30 family guest suites and all the things that you need in your bedroom when you're there, from pillow protectors to sheets to towels. There's just so much that we're going to need to get this house up and running. So there's wish lists,
even stuff you don't think of, phone chargers, stuff like that. Yeah.
Phone chargers, the amount of toilet paper that we go through in a day, to the 12 rolls of paper towels. There's tons of things that we're going to need to stock our pantry. So there's definitely wish list items. There's still outstanding construction items that we're looking for in kind for. So there's lots of ways to get involved, and even so much as volunteering to help us do planting on site. So there's lots of ways that you can contribute to the project.
Cool. Well, Jennifer, this whole project in itself is a tremendous and fantastic undertaking. So I want to thank you for, overseeing it and making sure that it runs smoothly for, both the Long Island community and the design community. I'll give you a personal thank you for both of those. But it was a pleasure having you on and learning a little bit about it and learning about the designer role and obviously IDS's role in the project. And I wish you the best of luck, and maybe if we do another season next year, we can have you back on and you can kind of do a status update and kind of go where we're at a year later. So
absolutely, I would love that, Brian. And I want to thank you and thank IDS, the Long Island chapter, for their participation in the project. And again, we really look forward to building the house and getting it open for the families.